Welcome to the Explainer. Every time you ask a generative AI a question, there's this whole hidden world of complex machinery that just springs into action. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and show you the fascinating, hidden architecture that makes it all possible.
You probably picture a pretty simple back and forth, right? A quick question, a quick answer. But the reality is so much more intricate, and honestly, is way more impressive.
For most of us, the mental model looks something like this. You type your query, and this powerful, all-knowing brain just kind of thinks for a second and then spits out a reply. It feels like a clean, direct line from you to the model.
Well, it turns out that's a total myth. It's a really common way to think about it, but it's just not how it works. So today we're going to bust that myth wide open by following just one single prompt on its incredible journey through a real production-grade AI system.
Okay, so let's start our prompt's journey. Now, the very first thing it encounters isn't the AI's brain at all. Nope, it's the unsung hero of the entire operation, the system's conductor. This is what we call the conductor, or the orchestration layer, and its job is to manage every single step of the process. It's less of a thinking brain and more like a master coordinator running the whole show from behind the scenes. Okay, so check this out. This is the real map of your prompt's journey. As you can see, your simple question is just the starting gun for this really complex pipeline. And that orchestration layer, right there in the middle, is connected to absolutely everything. It's the hub. Think of it like the head chef in a Michelin star kitchen. The chef doesn't personally chop every single vegetable, right? But they direct the entire line, they taste every component, and they are the one who plates the final perfect dish. That's orchestration. It intercepts your request and coordinates this whole team of specialized services. So here's the big takeaway, the thing you absolutely have to remember. The large language model, that's the powerful reasoning engine, but it is not a lonely genius. It never ever just sees your raw question. It's fed a carefully prepared meal of information by the orchestrator. So what's one of the first things this orchestrator does? Well, it has to get up-to-the-minute information. Think about it. How does an AI know what happened in the news yesterday if its training data is months or even years old? Well, the answer is this really clever technique called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or, RAG for short. This is the absolute key to preventing outdated answers. Instead of only relying on its fixed training data, the system fetches fresh, relevant information from approved sources, and it does it in real time. Okay, but that brings up a huge problem, right? A model has a pretty limited short-term memory. We call it its context window. You can't just stuff an entire library of documents into it at once. So the orchestrator has to be really smart about this. The strategy is actually pretty brilliant. It's called chunking. So instead of trying to feed the AI an entire book, the system breaks these huge documents into smaller, meaningful pieces, or chunks. Then it searches through all those chunks for only the most relevant passages and feeds just those to the model. Smart, right?
And this is why RAG is such a game changer, especially for any serious enterprise application. It makes sure the data is fresh, it allows for citations so you can actually see the source, it provides auditability, and it gives the organization total control over exactly what information the AI is allowed to use.
All right, so next up on our prompts journey, sometimes the AI needs to do more than just know things. Sometimes it needs to actually do things, like check your store's inventory, or book a flight, or query a live database. And here is a fundamental secret of well-architected AI systems, something you have to get. For security and control, the model is completely isolated. It cannot call an API, it can't query a database, it cannot execute code. It literally lives in a sandbox. So how does it get things done in the real world? It follows this really strict four-step dance. First, the model decides it needs a tool and sends a structured request to the orchestrator. Then, the orchestrator securely executes that tool and gets the result. Next, it returns that data to the model. And finally, the model synthesizes that brand new information into its answer. And that back and forth, that feedback loop, is the core principle here. You've got this clean separation of duties. The model is the reasoner, and the orchestrator is the executor. This is what allows the AI to interact with the real world in a way that is both incredibly powerful and completely secure. Now, being able to pull fresh data and use real-world tools is amazing, but it also introduces risk. Of course it does. That's why, at every single step, our prompt has to pass through these critical security checkpoints. This is the governance layer. So you ask what seems like a simple question, like what were sales last quarter? But underneath the surface, the system is going through a whole checklist.
It's asking, who is this user? Are they even authorized to see financial data? Is this a sensitive topic that needs special handling? And should this whole interaction be logged for compliance?
You've got all these layers, identity policies, guardrails, data encryption, audit logs, all working together to form this protective shell around the AI. This is what makes sure the system is used safely, securely, and responsibly. Okay, so finally, after its long journey through data retrieval, through tool use, through all those governance checks, our little prompt is ready for the main event. It's ready to be presented to the AI model. And this is what the model actually sees. It's never just your raw question, not by a long shot. It's this rich, composite prompt fully assembled by the orchestrator, and it contains everything. System rules, your original input, the fresh data it got from RAG, and the results from any tools it used.
And it's only now, with all of this carefully assembled context, that the model finally does its magic. It reasons over everything it's been given and generates the final, informed, and governed response that gets sent back to you. The journey is complete.
You know, this hidden architecture, it's not just about making AI smarter, it's about making it safer, more reliable, and more trustworthy. It's what lets us build the powerful, helpful tools of the future that our source author here, Peter Buswell, was so optimistic about. So the real question is, now that you see the full picture, what will you build with it?